the oppressed, we see that it says, if someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. That word forces, once again, in the Greek implies a specific military context. And so when we think about what the verse is saying, if someone forces you to go 1 mile in a military context, we realize that this can easily be assumed that this was what was happening to the Jews when the Romans would come through town, when the Roman army would come through town. They would choose a Jewish man in order to carry their packs, often weighing between 40 and 60 pounds, for the extent of 1 mile outside of the city. The Jews were not happy, obviously, so they marked out the roads outside of the city with large rocks at exactly 1 mile. They would walk them out, and then they would get rid of the packs and give them back to the Roman soldiers, because they despised the fact that they had to do this for these Romans, because it was the Romans' way of showing them who was in control, and that they didn't even have to carry their packs outside of the city because they had those lowly Jews to do it for them. But Jesus says, if you're forced into walking 1 mile, walk 2 miles. And in light of the other portraits we've been looking at, this seems kind of strange. Because initially it would seem to us like Jesus is trying to tell them to exemplify overwhelming kindness to someone who is oppressing them. But in reality, when we learn that according to Roman military code, if a Roman soldier forced a Jew into more than 1 mile's worth of service, he was subject to the affliction and beating from his commanding officer. Now, by no means should we assume that Jesus Christ was trying to tell Jews that they should get a bunch of Roman soldiers beat up, because we're not talking about violent resistance here. But what we can easily assume is a situation in which a Jew is carrying the pack of this Roman soldier, and the Roman soldier maybe has gotten in trouble with his commanding officer sometime throughout the day. Maybe he came back late last night, and he's not doing so well as walking this morning, and he's having some issues. And his commanding officer notices that, and maybe he feels like he's already in a little bit of hot water. And he's walking, and he notices that, he looks back, and he notices that the rock that marks the 1 mile outside of the city has already passed. He looks back at his new Jewish friend, and notices he's still got the pack. He turns back and looks at the rock again. No, still there. Hey, you know that the 1 mile marker was right back there, right? And the Jew says, oh yeah, I know. I'll carry it another. And he thinks, what is this guy trying to do to me? What is he doing? Is this safe? Is this okay? What if he has a weapon? What if he's going to try and do something to me, right? So maybe even in such a situation, the Roman soldier tries to forcefully take the pack back from the Jewish person, in which case the other soldiers are looking around at him. What is this guy doing? Have you seen this guy? He's gone crazy. Look at him. He's arguing with that Jew over carrying his pack. And at the very least, it's a comical situation, right? In which someone who was being oppressed and said, you're not worth anything, you can just carry my pack around, is asserting that maybe there's something more to me than just what you think. And in reality, what all of these portraits illustrate is that according to God, we are not to be set apart in levels of inequality, but instead that everyone should be on the same level in experiencing true equality. Because that's not the way that God thinks about things. Because you and I and everyone in the world is equal in the eyes of God. And unfortunately, you and I all have problems with this. And we have a tendency to not live that out at all. And at the possibility of stepping on some toes, is it possible that we let race get in the way of whether or not we feel equal to each other? Is it possible that we let gender get in the way of whether or not we feel equal to each other? Is it possible we let the fact that some of us might be Baptist and some of us might be Catholics, or some of us are instead Episcopalian or disciples of Christ or Methodist or what have you, that our denomination divides us so that we feel that one is inferior to the other? Because I don't think that's what Jesus would have wanted at all. And we've taken it to the point where it's gotten so far, in some cases, we'll just try and find things to make us feel better about ourselves and other people. We look at non-Christians and we say, we're better than them because we at least have Jesus Christ. And we look at other Christians in our churches and say, well, their sin's worse than mine because I don't have as much integrity as they do, but it's a secret, and I know that he cheated on his wife. down to the littlest things of whether you're on the South Beach diet or you're on the Atkins diet, and I like Cheetos. But everybody is looking for something. Some reason to look down on their neighbor. And frankly, that's not at all the way we should be acting, right? And maybe today, you're that person that thinks, oh man, this is really hitting home. And there's been things in my life, ways that I think about the people around me that have caused me to think of them as less than me. Or maybe you're the person who is thinking, man, I really feel like the people around me treat me like I'm less of a person than they are. If it finds you there today, please realize that you are worth so much more than what the world can make you out to be. Because no matter how hard that oppression comes at you, there are always ways in which you can react, whether with words or decisive action, to show that you are a child of God, created in His image, just like everybody else. And that's something beautiful to look at. So I hope that as we leave this event, and as we walk around in this event, even that we won't let the fact that, especially since we have denominational differences, and there are a multitude of people who are very different than us walking around all over in this festival, that we would be willing to engage and to spend time loving each other the way that God had intended in this weekend and in the rest of our lives. Amen. Amen.